Iowa Hawkeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, Hawkeye Nation, to another episode of the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast, your daily podcast covering your Iowa Hawkeyes on the Locked On Podcast Network. As always, I want to thank you for making the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast your very first listen every single day. You can find the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast for free wherever you get your podcasts at, and also on YouTube by searching Locked On Hawkeyes. And as always, I am your host, Wright Hillpiper. Now, before we get into things today, I want to quickly mention BetOnline. Our partners at BetOnline continue to be the number one source for all of your betting, sports needs, and sports info as well. You can find all of the latest odds, news, and sports developments, including this year's basketball playoffs, Major League Baseball scores, fights, and even next season's NFL futures. BetOnline is your continued source for all of your sporting wagering information, from live betting to playoffs to esports and more. So head over to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline, it is where the game starts. Now, there is a couple different things that I want to talk about today, and I say a couple because I only have two things that I want to talk about today. But one of them is a very big topic that I have a lot of opinions on. And then the other one is our story of the day, my absolute favorite story of the day that we have had on the podcast so far this year. It combines two of my biggest passions, those being football and music. So we will get into that a little bit later in the episode. I do want to give you a fair warning. Today's episode may be a little bit shorter because I do only have two topics to talk about, but they are very, very important topics to me. Especially the second one. I can't wait to get into our story of the day today. It's absolutely amazing. Very, very heartwarming. So I cannot wait to get into that today. The first thing that I want to talk about, though, is Iowa's athletic director, Gary Barta. Now, Gary Barta, obviously is tied up with the whole racial discrimination lawsuit as well. So he's got a little bit of stuff going on over his head at the moment, as well as several other Iowa coaches. That's not what this is about. This is about Gary Barta recently went on a podcast. I believe it was yesterday. I can't remember the name of the podcast, and I don't want to shout them out because they're a competitor, obviously. So he went on a podcast and he was talking about the whole NIL deal, the name, image, and likeness deal that the NCAA passed, I believe it was 13 months ago now, where players or like college athletes can now make money off of their name, their image, and their likeness, as the name suggests, obviously. And Gary Barta has some interesting opinions about that. So athletes, currently there is a rule that says that athletes are allowed to transfer schools one time in their college career without having to skip a year. Basically, like, before this rule was put in place, if you transferred to another school, you would have to sit out for an entire season before you were allowed to play again. And this rule makes it so that athletes are allowed to transfer one time without having to sit out for a season. So Barta wants this rule to be gone because he thinks it's causing athletes to transfer to different schools simply to make money. Like, these schools are offering athletes, a bunch of money to come and play for, whatever school it is. Which is illegal, by the way. It is illegal for schools to offer student athletes money to come play for their school specifically, but it is not illegal for brands and businesses to, promote products and stuff like that through student athletes. So Barta said, quote, "NIL is a good thing, and actually that part of it is going well on our campus. But what has happened, it is now being used for recruiting inducements that was never intended. It is still against the rules, but is blatantly being abused. You don't have to lose your scholarship, but you must sit out a year because we can control that." And I think that would slow down the NIL deals, because a booster isn't going to offer a student athlete a big sum of money if they know they have to sit out a year. I don't understand why Barta cares about this so much. And the only reason that I can come up with personally on why Barta cares about this so much is because there have been a few transfers from Iowa to different schools, the most recent being an Iowa basketball player, Joe Toussaint, who transferred to, I believe, either West Virginia or Virginia, one of those two. He entered the transfer portal and ended up going over there. So I still don't understand. It doesn't make any sense to me why Barta cares about this so much unless he thinks that Iowa athletes are leaving to go chase money at some other schools. And as far as the whole like coaches and boosters offering student athletes money to come play for, their school, that has been happening for a very, very long time. This is not a new thing. This wasn't something that all of a sudden started happening because of this NIL deal thing. And Barta's not saying that either. I just want to express that. It's been happening all over the NCAA for years and years and years. And Alabama had that scandal, obviously, a while ago with, paying players to come play for their team or whatever. That's never going to stop. Never. It's been going on for a very long time, and it's never going to stop. Schools are always going to pay student athletes to come play for them, regardless of the fact that it is illegal. It's always going to happen. And I bet you that at some point in Iowa's history, they have done that as well. I can't prove that. Obviously, you can't prove that any school has done that unless it's actually been proven in court already, like with the Alabama thing. You can't prove that, but I guarantee that at some point Iowa has paid a player or two to come to their school and play. Now, I'm not bashing Iowa and I'm not bashing any other college school out there, but it's a very, very common thing. And it happens every single year in the recruiting class. It continues to happen and it will continue to happen for the rest of the remaining time that college sports are a thing. And it's not just football either. It's baseball, softball, track, wrestling, golf, whatever you want or whatever you want to, imagine it as, that's what it is. It's coaches, boosters, athletic directors, whoever it is, paying these kids money to come, come play for them. And I'm going to try my best to give you an example of a loophole on how schools could get around this. So say, for example, that Kirk Ferentz, right? And I'm not saying that what I'm about to say is not true. This is just an example of what I'm talking about. So say that Kirk Ferentz has a buddy that is one of the higher ups at Nike, right? He makes a lot of decisions, whatever his role is, whatever. Let's say for a second that Kirk Ferentz is personal good buddies with the CEO of Nike, whoever that is. I don't know who it is, but let's say that he is. Let's say that Kirk Ferentz says, to his good buddy, hey, I'll invest in Nike. I'll buy stocks in Nike if you give a bunch of, Nike merchandise to this player so that he'll come play for Iowa. And schools have been doing stuff like that, like trying to get a loophole out of it for a very long time to do things like that. And that still happens as well. It is still not allowed. But it's, sort of a loophole for different schools to get around that sort of thing. But I mean, Barta's been the AD since 2006. It has happened since Barta has been there. I guarantee it. I guarantee it's happened all over college football. College football is, the sort of prime center for the whole paying student athletes to come play for whatever school. But Barta's been the AD since 2006, like I said. I guarantee that at some point from 2006 to 2022 that Iowa has paid or used some sort of loophole like the one that I mentioned earlier to get a student athlete to come play for them. Am I saying that Iowa... Now, let me rephrase this so that, people don't get upset. There's a possibility that Iowa has not done that because it is illegal, but there's a very good possibility that Iowa has done that. And I say this in the sense of a true college football fan that it happens. It happens everywhere. It happens in Iowa, happens at Iowa State. It happens at all of these major schools. It happens at Alabama. It happens at Georgia. It happens at Clemson. It happens everywhere, all over the country. And what Barta's saying right now is that he wants to control it so that, when people transfer to different schools, they have to sit out for a year. And Barta said in his quote that he can control that. Now, I'm wondering if that means that when people want to transfer from different schools over to Iowa to play sports, does that mean that Barta is going to force them to sit out for a season? Now, he didn't say that directly, but he did say that he can, they have to sit out because he can control that. And now let me get this straight. I'm not bashing on Barta either. I'm not bashing on him as an AD. He's a great AD, but what he's saying doesn't really make any sense because that if another student, Another student athlete wants to transfer from whatever school to come to Iowa, especially if they're a huge star or if they're a great athlete. Barta's not going to want them to sit out for a season. That's where I get confused. Now, please message me on Instagram, message me on Twitter, counteract my argument. You know what I mean? Talk to me about this. I want to know what your guys' opinions and views on this are, because it doesn't make sense to me. I'm very confused about what Barta is going for, like what he's trying to stand for here. And I understand that he wants the rule gone, but if that rule does go away, that doesn't benefit Iowa. You know what I mean? And the rule being here doesn't necessarily benefit Iowa either, but it doesn't necessarily benefit any school in the NCAA. And that rule not being there doesn't necessarily benefit any school in the NCAA. So I'm confused what Barta's stance here is and what he's trying to get at. Like, I don't understand. And regardless of the money, on top of that, regardless of the money, student athletes are going to transfer to different schools for whatever possible reason that there could be. They could not like the coaching staff that they currently have. They could not like the professors that they have. They could not like the dorm that they live in. Whatever it is, student athletes transfer for different reasons all the time. Students, regular students that don't play any sports, transfer all of the time for those same exact reasons. And let's not act like students and student athletes are two completely different people. Yes, one group plays sports, one group doesn't. But they're all people. They're all college students. I'm a college student. I went through, I think, 4 or 5 different roommates in my first year at Iowa Central. Granted, all of them were terrible. I ended up living by myself, but that's besides the point. People are going to transfer from one school to another for whatever reason that they possibly could want. Maybe their parents are moving to that state and they want to be close to their parents. I think Barta needs to stop acting like students or student athletes are leaving Iowa because some other school is paying them money. Obviously, it's a possibility that these other schools are paying these student athletes more money, or not more money, but money in general. But that's not necessarily true either, right? And honestly, my whole stance on the thing is that you have to let the kids play. Now, I know that's cliche and you hear that all the time. Stop talking about the money, because it's not the biggest thing here. The biggest thing to a lot of these student athletes is getting to the professional level where they can actually make money. And for some, that's not the case. For some college athletes, they don't have aspirations to go, play professional football or baseball or, whatever it is. They just want to go through college, play their sport and be done. But let them play. Why are you making them sit out? I never understood that to begin with. I never understood the rule, and it's the same in high school sports. If you transfer to another school, you have to sit out for a season, a season of a sport that you play. It's a little bit easier for high school because most kids play multiple sports, but and somebody tell me, because I don't know. I personally do not know. Somebody tell me, why in the first place did they make players sit out for a season? Why was that a thing? I don't understand it. I've never understood it. I didn't understand it in high school. So it doesn't make any sense to me. Let the kids play. Because I guarantee that most of the time they are not transferring because some school is paying them a bunch of money to transfer. You know what I mean? I mean, personally, it wouldn't matter to me if I was in that situation. If I, enjoyed my coaching staff, I enjoyed the facilities, I enjoyed the classes I was in, I enjoyed all of the friends that I had in college. It would have to be a pretty hefty amount of money for me to get to transfer, especially to another state, to play the exact same sport that I'm playing at the college that I'm already at, especially if I already enjoy that college. So I don't understand where this is coming from. I don't understand where Barta's coming from. And personally, I don't think that a lot of these student athletes are transferring for money because they can get NIL deals in the state that they're in. Most NIL deals come from businesses and brands and whatever it is. A lot of these kids, and I guarantee that, coaches and ADs and, programs have, like, the whole paying athletes to come play has gone down since NIL has been passed. Obviously it hasn't stopped, but I think that it's probably slowed down a little bit since then because players can make money through other ways. They don't need, these schools to pay them large amounts of money to come play for them. So somebody please explain this to me on Twitter, on Instagram, Facebook, whatever it is. I don't care. message me. Tell me what your view on this is, because I'm very interested in what you guys have to say. Because like I said, I have my set opinion. Let the kids play. It doesn't make any sense to me why they have to sit out for a year. That makes no sense to me whatsoever. So please DM me, personal message me, whatever you want to call it. Email me for all I care. None of you have my email, and I'm not going to share that with you either. But you know what I mean. Hit me up. Let me know what your thoughts are, because I don't understand. Schools paying athletes to come play at their university has been going on long before the NIL was a thing, and it will continue to happen even if this rule goes back. If this rule goes back to, student athletes do have to wait and sit out a year, it's not going to affect anything. Schools are still going to pay these kids to come play there. Now, these kids might not get that money until they can actually play. I don't know how all that works because I've never experienced that. So just let them play. Stop trying to make Barta. I don't agree with you. I do not agree with you at all. 0% on this whatsoever. And I'm sure there's people out there that agree with Barta, and I'm sure there's people out there that agree with me that are listening to this right now. So let me know your thoughts. If you agree with Barta, let me know. If you agree with me, let me know. I'd love to hear it. It doesn't register with me. I don't understand why he feels the need to be like, well, no, they have to sit out, and that's something that we can control, and blah, 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 blah. Why? Why do you want to control that? Why do you want to make them sit out? So they can develop more? If they're a junior transferring to another school for their senior year, why make them sit out? It doesn't register with me. And I know that all of you who are listening on Spotify or Apple Music can't see my facial expressions and my hands. I talk a lot with I use my hands when I talk a lot. So a lot of you aren't going to understand this, but just let the kids play. Let them play. Who cares? Who cares that they're transferring? Let them play. Anyways, I'm sorry. I'm a little tired while recording this, so I'm very, very, very emotionally invested in this. So I don't understand where Barta's coming from. I don't understand why they had to sit out for a year to begin with until this rule was, brought upon it. But I don't understand where Barta's coming from. So please, somebody disagree with me or agree with me. I don't care. Either one, whatever you want to do. Let me know. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know your opinions. I know I've said that 74 times now, but I want to make it clear. I want to know what you guys want, or I want to know what you guys think about this, because this is one of the more controversial topics for me personally that I've had on this podcast, because I have a lot of strong differing opinions from what Iowa is going for here. And I don't know what Kirk Ferentz thinks about this, and I don't know what the rest of Iowa's coaching staffs think about this, other than Barta. So please let me know what your thoughts are. I don't understand. This episode is full of hot takes from this segment alone, just because it doesn't make any sense to me. And I could just be dumb. I could be not realizing that there's, something that goes on within the whole college athletics thing. So if there is something that I'm missing here, let me know, because I don't understand. I fully do not understand why Barta thinks it's a good idea to make people sit out, especially if they're coming to Iowa from a different school. You really think that Barta is going to have some kid transfer from, I don't know, Boise State to come play for Iowa to play football and say he was a 5-star recruit out of high school and he's done nothing but put up, double-digit sacks season as a linebacker or whatever? Do you really think that Barta is going to make him sit out a season? No, he's not. I don't care. Barta can say, oh, well, they have to sit out because that's what's right. And, I have to make sure they're not doing it for the money, blah, 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 blah. He's not going to do that. And granted, that's a very unlikely opportunity that something like that will happen, but still, why, Barta? I don't understand. This is normally with Iowa's decisions on stuff like sports and stuff like that. Mostly I agree with it, but this is the one time where I've looked at something that Iowa has stood up and spoke about and been like, that makes absolutely no sense. So for the 77th time, somebody please let me know what I'm missing here, or, what the problem with this is, like why I'm wrong. Tell me why I'm wrong. Tell me why I'm right. I want to know. Please let me know. Anyways, before we get into the story of the day today, by the way, it is about Dallas Jacobus. If you haven't heard of him, you are about to. Before we get into that, I want to really quickly talk about BetOnline one more time. Our partners at BetOnline continue to be the number one source for all of your betting needs and sports info. You can find all of the latest odds, news, and sports developments, including this year's basketball playoffs, Major League Baseball season, UFC, MMA fights, and even next season's NFL futures. BetOnline is your continued source for all of your sporting wagering information, from live betting to playoffs to esports and more. So head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, it is where the game starts. Now, Dallas Jacobus, which is a very interesting last name. If you don't know who Dallas Jacobus is, he is a former Iowa offensive lineman. He played for them. I believe his last season was 2020. He played for them all 4 years. He was a walk-on back in, I don't know what year it would have been. He was a walk-on in Iowa. He didn't get much playing time. I looked up his stats. I was hoping to talk about them a little bit, but his stats say that he played through, I believe, 19 games. Didn't start through those games, but played in 19 games and only recorded 1 tackle. So regardless of that, this segment has absolutely zero to do with how he played at Iowa, but all to do with the fact that he did play for Iowa in the first place. So Dallas Jacobus, if you haven't heard, recently put out a song. I believe it came out May. I want to say it came out today, but I could be wrong. Anyways, he put out a song called We Wave. Now, I listened to this song. This is not an ad. I promise you this is not an ad. Go listen to the song. It is amazing. If you don't like country music, listen to it anyway. It is a country song, but it's an amazing song. If you don't know what the wave is, and if you don't know what the wave is and you're a Hawkeye fan, you're not a Hawkeye fan. Anyways, if you don't know, I'll explain it to you. So after the first quarter of every home football game, Iowa does this thing where all of the fans and all of the coaches and all of the players turn around to the University of Iowa Children's Hospital and wave to them for a few minutes while all of the kids wave back. The number one college tradition, the number one college football tradition out there. It's only been going on since 2017, granted, because that's when the facility that is currently there was put up. But by far and away, 100% by far, the number one college sports tradition, in my opinion. I hope you agree with me. It's absolutely amazing. I've had the opportunity to be a part of it a few times, and it's very heartwarming. It's absolutely amazing to see. And it's the greatest college football tradition, not only because it's so heartwarming and that it's for such a good cause, but every team that comes and plays Iowa in a home game does it as well. It's not like, they come and they sit on the sidelines and they just sit there and wait for the wave to be over. No. If I was playing Nebraska, every single one of those coaches, every single one of those players, the refs, the chain gang, the security guards at the event, every single person in the stadium, over 60,000 people, are standing up. They're waving to this children's hospital. It's absolutely amazing. If you haven't seen it or you have not been a part of it, please look it up on YouTube. It's absolutely amazing. Anyway, most schools have, like more normal traditions, if you want to say, like Penn State has its whiteout game, or Wisconsin, has that jump around thing that they do. But this is unlike any other tradition in college sports whatsoever. Back in 2017, a woman named Krista Young suggested in a Facebook post that a, quote, wave to the kids moment should be held during home games to support the children and families going through hard times. A lot of people probably do not know that was the lady that started it back in 2017. She posted to a Facebook group after the facility was built. She was like, hey, this overlooks the entire field. We should, wave to the kids at some point during the game. And it's been going on every home game since then. So now back to what I was talking about, the song. Dallas Jacobus released a song called We Wave, as I mentioned, about this wave and what it means to the families and the children in the hospital, what it means to the fans, what it means to the players and the coaches and the University of Iowa as a whole. It's an amazing song. As I said, this is not an ad. This is an amazing song. Please go check it out. I believe it is on all streaming platforms like Spotify, Apple Music. Go check it out. This is a free promo for Dallas Jacobus. Please go check it out. It's his first single. It's an amazing song. I listened to it at work today as well. It's amazing. So please go check that out. You won't regret it. It's an absolutely amazing song. So that is it for today's episode. I thought we were going to run a little bit short, but I think we're right around 25 minutes right now. So thank you for tuning in today's episode. Hopefully tomorrow we will have LaShawn Daniels on to talk a little bit about some more Iowa football. So be looking forward to that. Make sure you go follow me on Twitter, on Instagram as well. I'd rather you follow me on Twitter. I use that more for the podcast than I do my Instagram, so I believe that is right here. So you can go follow me on Twitter, and you can go follow the Locked On Hawkeyes page on Twitter and on Instagram as well at Locked On Iowa. And Locked On Hawkeyes now has a Facebook page, so you can go look them up, join that. As I mentioned earlier, please message me about the whole Barta thing. I'll be happy to look at those and respond to those as well. I try to respond to comments or DMs that I get. I don't have time to respond to them. I work every day of the week. Well, I work 6 days a week anyways, so I don't have time to open a lot of those, but please go check it out. Please go check out those pages and let me know what your thoughts are on the whole Barta situation, and please go listen to that song. It's amazing. It's a great country song. If you don't like country music, listen to it anyway, and if you do, you'll love this song. So once again, thank you all for tuning in to today's episode, and we will see you all tomorrow.